KnockBack, the retro and nostalgia podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to KnockBack. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my brother, Dagan Moriarty. Dagan, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Oh, hi.
Oh.
It's Bob.
It's Bob. Hey, Mr. Dylan.
I didn't know Bob was
you.
going to make an appearance tonight.
Yeah.
A little folksy. It feels like a folksy night. I don't know.
Do you think Dad gets... I think Dad gets like a little offended when you do that.
When I do the boom. I don't know why. I just have it in me. I don't know what kismet me and Bob share.
Wow.
Mr. Dylan.
Good word. I love that word. Kismet's a great word. I never use that word. It's like the word anathema where I try to sneak it in every once in a while because it's just so fun to use.
I can't hear the word kismet without thinking of Kermit. Is that weird? Yeah. A little strange.
No, they're kind of similar spelled. Not really. I mean, kismet is Kismet, right? Kermit is...
Does it at least begin with a K? Tell me that. At least
yeah, it does. Definitely.
Okay,
Kismet definitely does.
All right. What's popping, my dude?
Nothing, dude. It's been a busy day. Micah just got back. She was gone for 4 days. She had a death in the family. Her aunt died, so she was up in New England. So I was here alone with the dogs, and just... it's a lot of work. I don't know. I give her a lot of credit. It's like a lot to handle those two scoundrels.
Two pooches, man. That's double your pleasure.
Just because we're home all the time. So that's what they're used to. Sure. And so they just demand a lot of attention. And they're Bostons and they're crazy, you know. So they just have a lot of energy to get up. But so that was kind of a distraction for me, but I'm playing some games and hanging out, watching a little TV, watching some documentaries, whatever the case might be. And so she got back today, and Wednesdays are just... we're recording this on a Wednesday. Wednesdays are typically my busiest days, but I kind of like that. I have to get up in the morning to do a meeting with these dudes in Tel Aviv every Wednesday, and then I kind of just roll into this day writing sacred symbols, and which takes a long time researching everything for that and getting our ads together for the show that week and stuff. So it's just a busy day, but nothing really happening of any interest. Every once in a while, I think it's something funny to bring up on the show, and then I forget what it is. So,
you got to write it down. I forget everything.
Oh my God, me too.
Everything. It's sad.
What's going on in your life? You have anything to share before we begin our topic today?
You know, I meant to bring this one up a show or two ago, and it's been on my mind again. Let me know if stop me if you've heard this one, Kyle. All right. There's this story that's been churning for me over the last few weeks, and I've been following it with some interest. Been very interested in this. I don't know if you've heard anything about this. Let me bring you up to speed with it. So it starts, for me at least, with the gang over at Red Letter Media, right? And a lot of you guys will know them, those crazy geniuses over there lampooning and criticizing and reviewing films. Oh, they're the best. They're the gold standard for
absolutely.
For me.
I was going to say they're absolutely the gold standard. I don't listen to much of their stuff except for the Plinkett stuff, which I think I like when they're there. It's very rare, but when there's a new one, I'm like, oh my God, it's so exciting.
It's an event.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Really
anyway, so I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, I love.
No, not at all. No, they really are. They're so
beating them on Patreon. No big deal.
I thought you might squeak that in.
Yeah, well,
you didn't shock me.
Got one by the goal.
Sure. Yeah, but awesome. But they did this show that was really, really entertaining about a month or two ago. And it's centered on this conversation about what's going on with Bruce Willis, which I don't know if you've heard anything about this. So their first show on this, it basically centered around that Bruce Willis is doing a glut of like B movies, really bad movies. And he's doing a lot. He's doing like 1 or 2 or 3 a month. And they were calling them red box movies, which makes sense. That speaks to me, like the new age of direct to video, lower quality, low budge. Maybe fledgling directors, whatever. And they were even nailing, which they say Redbox movies, which is even a step down from direct to subscription services movies, right? Something that's not intended for theaters. Again, something not with something that has a relatively low budget, meager budget. And so Bruce Willis is doing all these things. And they're showing clips and talking about specific movies. And Bruce Willis is acting. Now, we all know Bruce Willis. He's an icon, right? We may know him from Die Hard, may know him from Moonlighting in the 80s, where he kind of had his ascension. May know him from Pulp Fiction, whatever. He's he's a movie star.
Yeah, definitely. Right? He's great. Fifth Element. That's one of my favorite roles.
Right. Yeah. All the whole kit and caboodle. And he's done things with M. Night. He's done things with Wes Anderson now. Like I think he's great. I think he has a great flavor, actually. Helene has a really funny story about him that she saw him once in person. I'll talk about that another time. But they're showing these clips, and I'm not familiar with these movies, so you see how stilted the acting is. He seems very out of sorts. He seems very wooden, actually. And he just lacks that whole charisma, and he seems like he's just going through the lines. There's one scene of one movie where he has a visible earpiece in, so they're conjecturing that they're delivering him his lines.
Yeah, delivering the lines. Yeah.
Something seems off. And apparently, it's kind of hard to judge this because Willis did some off-Broadway things back, I don't know, some time ago when he had an earpiece, and supposedly he was being fed lines for that. So that was nothing new. He's also notoriously a little difficult. Kevin Smith talks a little bit about that in some of his stand-up routines and stuff. So push comes to shove. They do a show. Red Letter Media does a show like a few weeks later to a month later, addressing it in half the show. It was half Bruce Willis and half another thing, but they wanted to address the Bruce Willis thing at the head of the show. And they basically said they got a lot of input from fans, angry input, saying there's something going on, supposedly, conjectured, allegedly, with Bruce Willis, that he may be going through some type of dementia, the beginnings of Alzheimer's, whatever it is. So people were saying to, I think it was Mike and Jay, or it was Mike and Rich, I think, look, like, this is what's going on. You guys are like being really mean-spirited about it. Like, that really, really upsetting stuff, upset fans and people writing into the show. So they wanted to address it, that this may be going on. We didn't mean to be mean-spirited, but I mean, look what we didn't know this. We had no prior knowledge that there was something maybe wrong, some kind of medical ailment. So push comes to shove. And it turns out that hours ago today, they started releasing a story on the news that Bruce Willis is in the early stages, I guess, of aphasia, which I guess I'm not a doctor, but I guess it is some sort of condition where you lose your cognitive abilities, your ability to speak, think, all that kind of stuff. So apparently, going back, Bruce Willis was kind of doing some movie star version of Breaking Bad. Instead of making meth, he was making as many movies as he could, as quickly as he could, to make money for his family, essentially. Which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
And I thought it was fascinating at first, but now I know, or it seems to be true. It went from being something funny to being something like, holy shit, like, this is the way this guy may be spending the last of his days as he is now, which I think is extremely selfless. Definitely. He may, who knows what happens with aphasia? I don't know if it's even a curable thing, if that's something that's going to linger, or so.
I don't know, man. I don't think
I just thought it was the most fascinating thing that he was just, and supposedly he's a high paid guy, right? He's a name, he's a marquee name, so he makes bank. Yeah, so they were saying $1 million a film. He turns out a film in a couple of days. He could do a few a month. So then it all makes sense if you go back and look at it step by step. I was extremely fascinated with it, and I thought it was timely because it was literally, I think, hours ago that Fox News and MSNBC and all the other major news outlets were starting to, leak this report. So it doesn't seem to be conjecture any longer. But I'm also proud of Red Letter Media because they're the ones who were kind of at the front of this, not the major news corporations.
As usual.
As always. No surprise there.
I mean,
right?
I don't even want... First of all, I mean, what the story, you almost can replace Bruce Willis with Joe Biden. The same story.
It's kind of true. Only Joe Biden doesn't really have talent.
I'm like, I was listening the other day and I was like, did Joe Biden just declare war on Russia? I don't understand what this man is doing.
So sad.
There's
how old the man is Joe Biden? Remind me how old he is.
I think he's 78 or 79. Yeah. I mean, he's clearly...
getting up there.
I don't mean this to insult anyone who's a fan of his, but one thing I really liked and that people are starting to make fun of a little bit more, and I'm not saying you should make fun of people's like impediments and stuff,
right?
But I followed politics very closely for a very long time.
You did.
And I'm a student of history and all of that. Take it as you will. No one ever said a word that Joe Biden had a childhood stutter until about 2 years ago.
Really?
Ever. I mean, maybe it was a throwaway thing here and there. And now suddenly during the campaign, he has like he can't speak clearly because he has a childhood stutter. And the reason that this is in my mind is because you always see clips of him on C-SPAN and all these things, 80s and the 90s when he's in the Senate and he's, pumping stuff out. He was going left, right, and center, and just like, oh my God, you guys are so full of shit. Like,
wow,
he's diminishing. He's diminishing. And we all know that,
right?
But the reality is that the previous person was so bad that everyone's like, we'd rather have this fucking Weekend at Bernie's situation going on right now in the White House.
I voted for Biden, straight up.
I didn't vote for Trump. Who did I vote for in that one?
Did you vote in that election?
No, I didn't vote in that election. That was the first election. That was 2020. That was when I was like, no. My they were like this or this, and for the first time I was like, no, I don't think so. And I just didn't go.
I think a lot of people. Right. I really feel like a lot of people pulled that one.
I don't like compulsive voting. Like they do that in Australia. You have to vote, and I'm like, no, I don't. It should be an option to vote. Frankly, too many of you are voting. All right.
That's one theory.
Yeah, that's one. So it is sad. First of all, and that's why I'd say with Joe Biden, and I really do feel that way, is it's sad to watch someone decline mentally, and we all know it, and we're trying to be polite and you respect your elders and all that. But
very publicly, this guy's the leader of the free world.
But with Bruce Willis, it's so funny, man, because just news pops up all over the place, and I'm like, oh, that will be covered in 5 weeks by NBC or something like that. It's just the way it always goes. So Red Letter Media, just the next example of doing God's work. Good for them. Those guys are awesome.
The best.
Absolutely love those guys.
The best.
But Dig, in the spirit of the silly spirit, typically of Red Letter Media, we have a topic today that I think is a little lighter. We've been going kind of heavy with some of these topics lately. Actually, I was looking where here it is. I was on Spotify looking at KnockBack. Like we did almost 3 hours on Toy Story. That movie is 65 minutes long or something.
Yes, we did.
And then we've been doing like Game of Thrones, which is taking forever. We did 2+ hours on Ghost in the Shell. We did 2+ hours on Uncharted, and we did even 2 hours on 16 Candles.
We started to trend long again,
right?
We?
We go through those trends. Like Sacred Symbols is trending towards. I don't even know what's going on in that show anymore. Like I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's been 4.5 hours. Like how?
Wow.
Just time warp kind of shit.
If it doesn't
I kind of feel like I just blanked out during that show. What'd you say?
If it doesn't feel like 4.5 hours, but it is, that's a great sign.
I go through like an Edgar Casey thing where I just like kind of like shake, and then I'm in some other place and some other being controls my body, and then I'm back. That's a fucking deep cut, by the way. Speaking of Edgar Casey, before I get into this topic any further, our dad used to love Edgar Casey. He's probably come up on the show in the past. If you guys don't know Edgar Casey, look him up. Edgar Cayce. And he was this like, he would like go into these like fits and like these sleeping spells and then like tell these amazing things that would happen and all of this. But one of the craziest things he did was that he had a lot to do with Atlantis and stuff, but he would draw maps of the United States and like how they would look. And I was going through stuff that Dad dropped off for me, a long time, not a long time ago, months ago. And there was an Edgar Casey map in there that I loved. That was his, I guess, when I was a kid, and I like always loved it. And it was this map of the United States in like 1995, the way it was supposed to look. And it's all fucked up, and there's like all these new cities and all of this. I'm like, this is so cool.
Wow.
He was dead wrong. But nonetheless.
But we liked his creativity.
Yeah, so he was an interesting. People should go look at him, Edgar Casey.
He is fast. It's so funny that you bring him up. I was just listening to an interview with Rodney Mullen last night, pro skateboarder Rodney Mullen, and he was talking about Edgar Casey in the interview, which I think is that's so weird.
It is weird. Maybe it's him channeling through us both to reach you.
There you go.
All right. So the topic at hand, Dig, is a little philosophical in some way, because I want to know the philosophy, the history, all of this of the childhood bedroom. I'm surprised we hadn't talked about this more deeply. Sometimes I come up with these topics and I'm like, we must have talked about this, but we didn't. We've never talked about the childhood bedroom. And I talk about the philosophy of the childhood bedroom because I feel like everyone has a philosophy with their bedroom when they're a kid. And I feel like that philosophy evolves, and I feel like sometimes you even try to force other philosophies into your bedroom structure. I really want to talk about that because that happened to me a lot in high school, where you want to have a different kind of philosophy, but you really can't. So what came to mind for you when I brought this topic up? Because this is kind of an interstitial topic. We're gonna get back to Game of Thrones and all the games that we're doing and all of this.
Absolutely.
What came to mind for you? Because obviously you have what I would identify in my mind, what, of like 3 childhood bedrooms, and you probably don't even really remember the first one. So
yeah.
So it's,
Yep.
and for me, I have like 4 or 5, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But I'm curious what came to mind for you, because I remember your bedroom, especially on Marie Court, so well. I remember that bedroom, the gray walls, and I remember
I
the
figured you
hole you
would
punched
remember
in the
that one.
wall that you covered with a poster, and that was fine for 8 years or something, and all that other stuff.
I forgot
So
about that.
yeah. So Dig, tell me a little bit about what came to mind for you.
Yeah, I figured you would have a few more in total. My childhood bedrooms were 4 actually, but the first one, which I'll go into briefly, I barely remember because I only had till I was 4 years old. And this is a subject that I think is going to be a lot of fun, and it's actually on my mind a lot because I have 2 kids, so we're always dealing with their rooms. And I have 2 kids that are getting older now. One's going to be 12 this year. One just turned 15. So I'm seeing the genesis from their little kid version rooms sort of evolving into their young adult rooms now. And we're dealing with that, redecorating, new furniture. My son, Graydon's always in his room sort of planning something. He loves to kind of change the floor plan and just get a different layout, which reminds me very much of myself when I was
Yeah, I was gonna say, you used to do that all the time too.
Yeah, I was
like
really
your whole
into
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Early feng shui,
Yeah, I mean, you did it. You did not only there, but in the basement. We'll have to talk about the basement one day in our old house.
Absolutely.
Really tried to get that going too.
Yeah. Because we didn't have a finished basement. We tried to make it like a finished basement. So it was like a proxy of a finished basement.
Right.
But I like this because it could be a little tale about those spaces that we spent so much time in growing up. Our little childhood caves of comfort. And I think about it a lot with my kids too, with punishment, because this is the place where we were banished to whenever we got in trouble as kids.
Right. It's so fun.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which Helene always had a very fashion forward philosophy with this. And I'm not sure why she sort of enacted this in our household from the beginning. Maybe, she might have grown up this way, where she didn't get sent to her room when she got in trouble. I think her mom kind of thought that was wrongheaded. And so we've never done that either, even though I did. But it didn't change the look of my room for me. It was a place where we could play, use our imaginations, be surrounded by the stuff that we loved, the stuff that we dug the most, and the place that we had really the only place as kids that you have any domain over, So it's that one place that you could truly call your own and your first sort of refuge away from the rest of the world, comfort, sleep, hopefully, and hopefully all kids have that, but I certainly grew up that way. And it was interesting to think of the 4 different bedrooms or 3.5 different bedrooms, because the first one, I don't even know. It's like a confluence of memories and seeing things in photos. I don't know what's what. I can't really place each vision or image. But I think it'll be really fun. I have definitely very specific memories of each bedroom. And frankly, not even just the aesthetic things and the sort of the tangible, tactile things, the furniture and the toys, and that's certainly a part of the equation, but also the different emotional things each bedroom, just thinking about each bedroom and each age and each era and all of the different emotional things that it kind of drudged up for me. And it reminded me of some weird stuff that I've never even talked about. So I think it could be a very interesting conversation. And then some of the bedrooms that you've had, I don't even know very well. So again, this is a type of thing where I'm going to be at rapt attention because I don't even know some of your bedrooms. Of course I do, 2 of them specifically, but some of them I don't. When you moved out of state, when you moved out of New York, I maybe saw those rooms so infrequently that I really don't even have any memory of those places. So that'll be fun to talk about.
I think it's also funny too how the bedroom changes not only over time for you as a child and what it means for you and it's where you go and all of these kinds of things, but even in kind of going out into the real world, you're still tethered to these bedrooms. For me anyway, I rented places with people, and you had your community play, your living room and your dining room or whatever, your kitchen, but then you all had your bedrooms. And I reflect back, I get this real anxiety actually. And it's just because I'm getting old and weird and I never go anywhere. But when I go out and about and I see like an apartment complex or an apartment building, I get almost a sense of dread. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I lived with other people and like had to share my space with other people and walls with other people and have to worry about all these different things. It's almost like I don't even remember that. And my bedroom now these days in my late 30s, I guess, is like I give a fuck about my bedroom. It's just so funny. We have a really beautiful king size bed and a beautiful TV in there and stuff, but I go in there to sleep and like watch TV and hang out, you know, make love. Jesus Christ. But you know what I mean? Like the bedroom just has changed. It's not a place. It's not a focal point of my life. I never want to really be in it. I try not to lay down too, because I don't know. I just always felt like I was in bed for like years of my life when I lived with other people, because I was just nowhere else to go.
Yeah,
so
that was the one place.
And I get anxiety. I watch some of these YouTube videos of people's spaces and cities and how they live really small and really lean and stuff. I'm like, that's cool, but man, it's just so rough. These almost capsule size places. It's too much for me. But I want to start with you. You're obviously older than me, so we'll start with your early bedroom or bedrooms. I'm just curious what your memories are of that, maybe that first or that second room, the one I guess you're most cognizant of. That would be Neighbor, I guess. Neighbor Avenue would be the first one you really remember.
That would be the first one I have vivid memories of, yeah.
So, yeah, talk to me about this and talk to me about your philosophy. You're very persnickety like I am, but I think you're even more so. So I wish I kind of had a memory of your room and your layout and all those, but I just don't. I just don't remember it at all. So talk to me a little bit about that, those early formative days.
It's funny that you say persnickety, because that sort of persnickety, methodical, OCD, everything's got to be in its place will definitely factor in, especially to one of the bedrooms I'm going to talk about. And I really dig what you said about sort of the close quarter apartments, whether it's our past or people still living like that, especially young people, students, graduate students, whatever, college dorms, whatever. It's a big part of everybody's journey. But I still deal with that too. I know exactly what you mean, especially because I work in a company. I work for Nickelodeon out of New York. So a lot of the people that I work with, if they're not on the West Coast, they live in Brooklyn. I mean, quite frankly, that's where they live, 90% of them. And on our Zoom calls, I'm in multiple Zoom calls every day, still not quite over the COVID thing. So almost everybody's still working remotely, although that's starting to change now. But so I see everybody's spaces, and you could tell their apartments, you could tell. And it definitely does feel different. There's so few people that I work with, especially in my industry, that live in the suburbs, because everything's in the cities, especially on the East Coast. So that is something that definitely registers with me, what you said. The first bedroom and I have to give a nod to it. It makes sense to start here, was on Long Island when I was first born. Now, when I was first born, it was in Port Washington, Long Island. Mom and Dad had an apartment there, and I was there for less than a year. I have absolutely no recollections of that place at all. But the first tiny house that they bought, there's so many interesting things about this for me, because Mom grew up in a very tiny town on Long Island called Albertson. Now, it's in Nassau County. I bet even our listeners from Long Island, I bet a big percentage of them don't even know what Albertson is. It's a very tiny 1 mile by 1 mile square village near Mineola. A lot of people know Mineola and major hubs like that. But that's where Mom grew up. And that's where Mom and Dad bought their first house. And it's such a striking memory for me, because the house was so tiny. Did you ever see it, Kyle? Do you remember ever seeing
Dad,
it?
We would go to, Dad has these interesting nostalgic bends. Like, I don't know if he did it with you ever, but when we would be out in Nassau County, he would like go drive by things. Like, let's go by the old house. Let's go back, go to the old diner. Let's do it. And so, yeah, on several occasions, he would go by that old house. So, yeah, I did see it. And it is tiny little
I mean,
house.
a bungalow. If I'm saying 600 square feet, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it was a really tiny, probably post World War II, but maybe that was one of the existing structures that was there even longer than that. I don't know. It's a good question, actually. But that's where I lived from probably 9 or 10 months old through 4 years old. I was there. Dana was born there. Our sister Dana, our older sister, was born there. And I have almost no sort of tangible visions or recollections of the place. And again, like I said, a lot of it is probably my mind being fooled by a blending of photographs that I've seen, mixed with probably a couple of choice memories, right? But I have very fleeting visions of like Dana's crib in the room. We shared a bedroom, as far as I know. I think it was only a 2-bedroom house, to my best recollection. And Dana, who's 2 years younger than I am, she was in a crib. The interesting thing is, Kyle, I was there long enough to have gone from crib to bed age, right? So I had to be in a bed by the time we left that house at 4 years old at some point. And I have like the random memory of like a Raggedy Ann doll, brown carpet, that sort of avocado green walls with the orange, very 70s, wood paneling, very dark, not a lot of light in the house, a very 70s look and feel to those very, again, very foggy memories of that. And I wish I remembered more, because I feel like by the time we got to our larger house out east on Long Island in Medford, which is the first bedroom I really remember, I feel like I was already a little bit older. So it would have been cool to remember some of that toddlery stuff, whether it was the toys, the way the room was decorated. I have very little memory, but you know what? Mom and Dad do have a lot of pictures that have been surfacing a lot over the last few years for some reason. So I have to look through those, because it might refresh some things and spark some memories that kind of, then it becomes like a domino effect of remembering certain things.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a logical place to kick it over to you, because you have more bedrooms to discuss too.
Yeah. No, it's, I don't know which ones I'm going to discuss and which one. I mean, there's a couple obvious ones. I don't know if I have to talk about all of them, because it really is about the philosophy. I wouldn't really get into that, but there are obviously
I want to get into that too.
Two I really want to get into. So I had a bedroom in Neighbor Avenue, but I don't remember that. And then we moved to Marie Court, and so that was the first bedroom I really remembered. Now, I have to say this. I found that I think we've said this before, and I know I always say that, but I'm so sorry, because I just feel like I'm so redundant over the years. So who the fuck? Some people are like, but I find it weird that Dad and Mom built, their dream house in Brookhaven, the house that we grew up in, with 4 bedrooms when they had 4 kids. Have you ever thought about that? Like, what?
I was thinking about it today.
You guys, and I know that I know because of his new house in the Hamptons, they like agonize over this blueprint. I know, Dad. I know that it was to his exact specifications.
Yes.
And it's like, why didn't you have 5 bedrooms? And so I have to say that just on the outset, that I kind of feel bad, because Dana and Allie, our sisters, shared a room, but their room was huge. I mean, I don't know if I remember it quite accurately because I'm a kid, but I remember that room being enormous.
It was long.
Yeah, it was long, right? Yeah, it was long. Yeah. And they had like a walk-in closet. Not that it was like very walk-in, but it was, but for some reason they had to share a room. And I never shared a room with anyone until I was in college. I wanted to kill those motherfuckers when I was in college. And, half the people that I lived with, but
I hear that.
Not because for any other reason, but because they snored. I wanted to absolutely murder some of these people.
Oh, it's a roommate thing. There's always going to be some sort of drama.
Definitely. But I never had to deal with that. And you didn't either. I don't know,
no,
Dana and Allie. No. I would, that would have been a real question for me when we moved, if I was, especially Dana. I would have been like, why can't I have my own room? You're building, this house is being built. Just put a wall there.
Yes.
And give me my own. So I would love to know the theory behind that. But
it is odd.
It is odd. It is. It totally is. But and I'm sure you remember, but for people that wouldn't know, which is all of you, you walk into the front door of our old house, and then slightly to the left of the front door was the staircase up, right in front of you. If you walked up the stairs and then just went right around so that you were like walking parallel to the stairs, my room was right there at the top of the stairs.
Yes.
And my philosophy with my room as a kid was cleanliness. I don't know. I think it's because, it's nurture. Mom and Dad are very clean, like neat, organized people. And so from a very young age, it was like, you got to keep your things neat. And my task was always to go like dust the baseboards every week and do whatever, everyone had their own little tasks and all these kinds of things.
Yep.
And so I remember just kind of keeping things in order. And the things I remember about that first room were, first of all, I had 2 closets. I don't know what that was all about. Again, this is a choice that Dad made, right? And it's like, so I had 2, do you remember that? I had 2 closets.
Were they side by side?
Yeah, they were side by side with each other.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
And then, so I don't know what that was all about. And then next to it was a shelf that was like half built in that I actually think was from my old bedroom. It was like this massive floor to ceiling shelf. And it was awesome. And I remember it because when we left in 97, we had to leave it behind. And then my bed, the entire time I think I was there, my bed was in the middle of the room. I hate that shit now. You have to do it in like with a lot of like master bedrooms, but I hate that so much. The bed in the middle of the room for single people beds. And then nightstands, dresser along the side of the wall. And then it was that kind of far area that moved around a little bit. We had various small TVs and chests there. I had a toy chest at the foot of my bed, and then like a desk. I had your art desk later on when you went to college, and all sorts of different things. And my philosophy was with that particular room again was just order. I don't know that I really had developed fully my own personality yet. I had like a lot of different things, the stuffed animals. I had like the Grave Digger poster and the Babe Ruth poster. I had the Mega Man 3 poster from Nintendo Power, and
yes,
I had a huge map of the world on my wall. I don't know if you remember that. I was like obsessed with that map.
I do.
It actually had the Soviet Union on it, which is so like I was learning from this map that for some reason no one told me wasn't accurate. Although it was when it was bought, I guess. And so that's kind of like the early formative memories of that room. And I spent a lot of time in there, although the house was so big and I was there after 1993 only for summers and vacations that it's like, well, I'm going to be in other part. I'm going to be outside in the pool. I'm going to be with my friends. I'm going to be here and there. So, but I loved sitting in there playing games and doing my weird paper and pencil, like single player role playing type sports things that I've talked about in the past, where I'd have like all these sports leagues going on with like dice and all, I was out of my mind. I don't know what the hell I was doing when I was a kid, but I think about that room now, and it is one of those situations. Like if walls could talk, that house I'm sure still exists. Same wall I'm sure is still there, and it would be so interesting to kind of have some of those memories and see some of those sites, because I have a few specific ones. Specifically in the far corner of the room, we built like you and I did it together. We built like we just put a bunch of like pillows and blankets down and made like a little gaming corner, a little gaming. Absolutely. And we would like move those things around, do that all the time. And I do have specific memories of us playing Mario 3 in my room, of us playing Mega Man 2 in our room. I have a memory of playing Mega Man 2 in the corner of my room by myself. I have a memory, funny enough, of Allie and her best friend Janine and me playing like Mario with them. And
that's so funny.
Memory.
I don't remember what TV you had in there. What TV?
I think it was the remember the TV with like the twist. It's like a small 12-inch TV that Dad used to have like in his bedroom, and it was like you twist it to turn it on and off.
It was color. It wasn't black.
Yeah, it was color, right?
Yeah.
But it was really small. I think that was the TV. And then later on, I had a TV that I don't know where Dad pulled this one from, but I had it like until 2001 or so when I finally bought my own TV. It was from the 70s. So I had like my PS1, my PS2, my Dreamcast, like all hooked up to this ancient TV. It would make this humming noise, and I would smack the side of it, and it would stop. Like you turn it on, it would be like, and then you like smack it, and it would stop.
Oh, I miss those days. I
have pictures of that TV. Like, there's pictures of me playing games on that TV. I'll have to dig those up at some point. But so that's kind of the extent of that time, and it's interesting because that time, I just don't ever feel like I spent much time in that room, like with my friends. When I think about my friend Eric or my friend Bryce, my friend Tim, we were always hanging out in their rooms. For some reason, in our house, we were just somewhere else. And I also never really liked hanging out in my house. I don't know. I always wanted to be kind of gone. But what's funny about that room too, that first room in Marie Court, is just after Mom and Dad got divorced and I would go home, it was kind of like fun to be like, oh, your room is there. Like you have a room, go to your room. And it's not like you're staying in some stranger's place. So that's a kind of special refuge for me from that perspective. But I miss that place. And it's funny, like in thinking back about that house and why I was sad when we left and the things that I think about, it's not so much the room as much as it's just like about other stuff. It was almost not central to a lot of my memories. My room on Woodland Avenue is much more central. Talk about that.
Yes. Next, oh, that room is iconic for me. Legendary bedroom.
Yeah, it's a lot of funny memories, and only a few years happened in there with a lot of different people. So yeah, I'll leave it there. But this brings you to, I guess, what, Neighbor Avenue, right?
Yeah, the first one, because I had two different bedrooms in Neighbor Avenue.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. Okay. So
yeah, because when you came along, you took your nursery became Allie's bedroom. That's when Allie and Dana first started sharing a room.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then Dad built a house to circumvent that, but didn't build another bedroom. So weird. What was that all about? Isn't that like a great mystery?
It really is. It's one of those unexplainable things with Mom and Dad. God bless them. I love them so much.
They're like, we have too many kids in this 4-bedroom house. Let's move to a 4-bedroom house.
But I'll make it even more of a compound issue, because If you think of our first, well, I'm about to go into my bedroom on Neighbor Avenue in Medford, and this house on Neighbor Avenue in Medford was probably, if I'm not mistaken, a 2,200 or 2,400 square foot colonial. It was relatively large. It wasn't a small house. And it was, as Colin says, it was a 4-bedroom house with a living room and a family room and a dining room and a full kitchen and 2.5 bath, the same thing. We moved into a house that was, I believe the house in Brookhaven was 4,400 square feet. It was twice the size. And yeah, our parents decided that. Now, that was a premium move. They had the house custom built. There was a lot of it's
that
a
master
long story.
bedroom was probably 900 square feet alone.
It was huge.
Like, Jesus Christ, guys! Can you give Allie a room, please?
It was an interesting decision, especially for such a large house. And when you're going premium, I still feel like this. When you go in premium in a house, now I live in a 4-bedroom house too. I get it, but 5-bedroom is where you really step up. That's really a premium thing. I would still like to buy a 5-bedroom house, just thinking about the future and accommodating guests and all that kind of thing. But that was a weird decision, especially when you're dividing that huge space into a specific amount of rooms. You definitely had the room for the 5. Even in a center, I guess that was a Georgian colonial.
Dad's a sinister man.
It was strange. And, Allie and Dana started sharing a room when you came along. So
sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, and that's interesting. That's a really interesting part and a fun part of my memories, actually. And I also love what you said, Kyle, about, now we take the bedroom for granted as adults, right? Especially guys like me and you, people like us that have offices and stuff.
Right.
It's like having another bedroom. But now when you own a home, even if you have a family, even if you have a larger family, now your 1 bedroom as a kid, your one space, that one custom space that was all yours. Now you have that times 10, times 12. It's your entire home is yours. So that mystique and that importance of that bedroom fades as you get older. Especially because I'll just come in here. I'll just come in my studio, my office. Right. So I love that too. So it definitely harkens back to a certain era in our lives where you do have just that one space that's yours, that you could decorate the way you want, your own flavor. No one could tell you. I mean, your parents can tell you what to do, and we'll get into that too. But within reason, you're still able to kind of let your personality shine and do your thing in there and be your own person. It's kind of like decorating your car later on with bumper stickers, right? But your bedroom's the first iteration of that. But yeah, this first bedroom for me, so many memories, man. To my best recollection, this house in Medford was built in 1977. And for those of you who don't know Long Island, the suburbs of New York, there was a big push east over the years, over the decades. Nassau County, which is the westernmost county on Long Island in the suburbs, was largely developed after World War II. And then slowly over the years, every 5 or 10 years, there'd be a push east. And when we moved out east, about 30 or 40 miles, east of where our parents grew up in Nassau County, it was still largely farmland out there. And they were the builders were just starting to develop. Sid Farber and these other huge developers were just starting to develop that part of Long Island. So it was really brand new. And there was a lot of people coming from the West, not only Nassau County, but from the Bronx, from Queens, from Manhattan, and a lot of their first experience in the suburbs, like my best friend John, his family was from the Bronx, South Bronx. And it's a very specific memory for me because when we first moved there, now it's largely developed with stores, corporations, businesses, and homes. There's a lot more sprawl, but back then there was a lot of farmland. And that's really part of the vision in my mind's eye. When I think back to then, it was like, yeah, we had the development. There was no lawns yet. Everything was on dirt. Maybe the seeds were starting to sprout. Not a lot of companies around. Maybe your miscellaneous office parks and gas stations and stuff, but it wasn't built up like it is today. And I have so many vivid memories of this because I stayed in this bedroom from when I was 4 to when Colin came along. I moved over a bedroom, and I'll talk about that one next, around 10. So I spent the better part of 6 or 7 years in this bedroom, and I have so many funny memories of this bedroom. And it starts for me, I know I talked about this on another show, but it starts for me with the Kiss posters on my wall because it's very, very strange. Now, they probably didn't come along until I was 6. But picture a 6-year-old. I had 2 Kiss posters on my wall. One was the Love Gun album illustration. Huge poster size posters. These weren't little 8.5 by 11 things. And the other one was for Destroyer. So Love Gun is the guys, the Kiss guys, our 4 heroes in their little hero poses with scantily clad girls at their feet, laying at their feet, right? That's the one image. And the next image is Ace and Peter and Paul and Gene kind of in their get-ups with their spikes and their leather and their chains and their crazy shoes and everything, on beautiful illustration, actually, on like this piece of doing like their hero poses on this mound of rubble with a burning city in the background, right? Just like not things you would think about that were appropriate for a 6-year-old, but Kiss
Different
really
time.
did cross over into that pop culture for us in the late 70s. But it was weird because, and here's what I thought about that made me laugh. Somebody had to buy me those and hang them up.
Yes.
I honestly think that parents back then just were not paying attention. I think they probably saw that. They saw the Kiss logo, that telltale Kiss logo, right, in the yellow and orange with those funny S's. And they probably saw Gene in his makeup or whatever. And that's where it stopped for them. They were just like, hey, my son's into it, type of thing. It would be like a 5 or 6-year-old rocking like a Guar poster on their wall today. It's just weird. It's like not time for that. You could see that 14, 15, they're starting to spread their wings and express themselves. But as a 6-year-old, it's such a huge part of my memory because it was right next to my bed. So I would go to sleep looking at those images, and they didn't scare me. I loved it. And, I had the albums, hand-me-downs from Uncle Mike again. I had the Peter Criss solo album with his face plastered on it. So Kiss was like a big part of that bedroom. And what appealed to me back then, I was super into Kiss. And I remembered this, Kyle, which was fun. I had a white plastic toy Kiss guitar that I remembered being a permanent fixture in my room. I had it leaned up against the wall. It was like one of my prized possessions, And I remember it was basically just a plastic guitar with crappy strings, electric guitar, but it had a decal, a giant Kiss decal over the body of the guitar. That was how they decorated it. And probably the factory in China, whatever, they did all the different bands on it. It was the same mold, maybe different color and different decal. But for some reason, this mold of this electric guitar had a giant hole in it, like an acoustic guitar would have. So every sample I've ever seen of this thing has the sticker pushed in around the hole. And I remember doing that. Like I couldn't resist it as a kid. I had to break the sticker where that hole was.
Right.
And I looked it up on eBay. That I saw one example of this guitar going for $800.
Wow.
On eBay right now, which is so crazy because I remember really loving that thing. It was like one of my first memories of a toy that I really loved, probably pre-Star Wars, if not very close to that time period. And the other thing that occurs to me about this room was Star Wars was really the only toys that I was into at this time because G.I. Joe, Transformers, and the other things hadn't really come along yet. And I remembered, as I was thinking and writing down memories, I had a toy chest at the foot of my bed, and I remember that was like my place of honor for any new toy that I got that I was excited about. I would prop it up on my toy chest. So when I woke up in the morning, I could just crawl to the edge of my bed and grab it. And, I always talk about this on the show, and the girls, especially our sisters, will laugh at this. But we grew up we were fine, right? Very middle class. We didn't want for anything. Everything was lovely. I had a great childhood. But we didn't just, I can't stress this enough, we didn't just get shit for no reason. It was like good report card, Christmas, birthday, great. But we didn't just get toys randomly. When we got something, it was an event. It could be an action figure. It didn't matter what it was. That was like a big deal. And I would love getting like a Star Wars figure, a new Star Wars figure. I remember one time, I don't even know how these came into play, but I had the, we talked about on the Toy Story show, the little molded toy soldiers, the little green baggie of soldiers that you get. I had weird, colorful versions of that, but they were cowboys and Indians.
Oh yeah, I remember those. I
remember those.
I had similar ones. Yeah, I remember those too. Yeah.
And
I wonder if they're the same ones, but I had those. Yeah.
I would just prop them up on my toy chest. That would be like the star of the week, whatever toy I got. I remember I got Death Star Commander, that funny action figure with the crazy black bowl helmet.
Yeah.
Right. He was a big guy for me. Like I was excited about him for a couple of weeks. So that was like my little stage where I'd keep like the toy that I was really excited about. And then that room is kind of a bittersweet memory for me too, because it was kind of a blending of things I was into and then just really kiddie type things. Like I had that creepy giraffe coat hanger in there.
Yeah, I remember that thing.
Again, the toy chest with just random toys that were just like secondhand or of less importance to me than like the Star Wars toys or anything that I was really into. And this is the one thing that I remember wanting so much as a kid. Now, you probably can't relate to this as much because you actually did have it. And later on, you'll talk about your bedroom in your other bedroom in Brookhaven in the smaller house, and you had a computer in there and stuff. But I'm a 70s kid, right? I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I always worshiped at the altar of having a TV with cable in my room. It was like a dream come true to me, like to be able to have that. The other thing a lot of Gen Xers will be able to relate to, is having a phone. Like those kids that had their own phone line. That was like the most opulent. I couldn't even imagine something that was more decadent than having your own phone, like a dream. I didn't even want to talk. I hated talking on the phone, but just to have that, just to have that big kid thing. But the one thing I did have in that first bedroom that I remember very well, I had one of our old primitive TVs, like a hand-me-down black and white TV. This was pre-remote control ready, dial, 9 channels. And I had the Atari 2600 hooked up to it. And I remember I was probably 7, having to battle mom and dad just to have that opportunity. Like, please, like you could trust me. And like, I was on a strict ration. Like they would tell me when I could start and stop playing. It wasn't like I could just do it whenever I wanted, but just having that in there with the Atari and probably a handful of games. We didn't have that many games. Was such a treat. And it was my first time of having that in my bedroom. I always wished that I could watch cable. Like to be able to watch cartoons from my bed was just a dream. It was just like a dream that I thought would never come true. It was like, how long do I have to wait for this? But that was the one thing. I had the Atari in there and I had a record player. And it was probably a kiddie record player. I had my Kiss albums and I had 3 other albums in rotation. That's it. I had Star Wars, which was like a John Williams orchestral type thing from the first Star Wars film. I had Disco Duck, which was like this weird Donald Duck disco album. And I had a Snoopy Peanuts thing, which had that Red Baron, Snoopy versus the Red Baron song, which I loved as a kid. And I would listen to that stuff on rotation. And then for the Gen Xers out there, you'll remember this. I wish I still had these. Back then, in the junky cereals, Count Chocula and probably Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms, once in a while they would have a record in there. And most of the time they weren't plastic records. They were these heavy stock cardboard records that they had in the baggie, and they had the grooves, and they would play like goofy cartoon character mascot related Trix Rabbit songs or whatever. And I would listen to those. And that was a very specific memory because I think those went away by like the early 80s. So that's a very 70s, late 70s, early 80s specific memory. Like a lot of that bedroom is. We were talking about Sid's bedroom, Kyle, on Toy Story.
Right.
And do you remember those? You're probably too young to remember that we had those carpets, those builder grade, sort of low plush sculpted carpets in that house, in the bedrooms upstairs, different colors. One bedroom had green, one had burgundy, one had blue, whatever. And I do remember that carpet because if you weren't careful in your PJ shorts, or if you're just wearing boxer shorts or shorts, you could get a rug burn because that was a very unforgiving, very tough, almost like like a polyester blend that was almost sharp to the touch. And I do remember getting rug burns. Like if you slid out a little too much, a little too excitedly on your carpet, before, we got like upgraded carpets, or the carpets downstairs are a huge contrast. The builders back then, they would just throw those cheap carpets up there and then you would have a choice to upgrade it later on if you wanted to, but they had to put something over those plywood subfloors, So that was the other big memory with me. And the other thing is that I took for granted though, that bedroom I had my own bathroom. It was attached to the bathroom I had the bedroom, which was pretty large, and eventually Dana and Allie would share that bedroom when I moved to the other smaller room when you were born, but it had a little sort of vestibule, like a little airway, hallway with closet on either side. And then that had a door that opened up to one of the full baths, not the master bath, obviously, but the bath that was on the hallway. So I had, for a little while, for that 5 or 6 years, I had access to my own bathroom. And of course, all the kids used that bathroom, not just me. The girls used it too.
It's kind of like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, absolutely. They did. They had that central bathroom right in between.
Yeah, where they would come in on opposite sides.
That's awesome. That's so funny.
Yeah, it's dope.
So that bedroom really smacks of the 70s for me until the early 80s. And by the time you probably in 83, while mom and dad were kind of getting the wheels in motion for you to come along and get your nursery squared away, we were probably all moved into our other bedrooms, 6 months before you were born or so. So yeah, I probably was only in that bedroom for, about 6 years.
Interesting. Okay. I don't even think I did not know that. So that's news to me. That makes sense. I don't know what you're right though about these different bedrooms. Like I'm in a bedroom in my house right now, and it is nice to just have that kind of escape. Maybe it would be different if I didn't have that here. So
yeah, that's true. Good point. Yeah. Or a finished basement. You got to have the man cave, or Helene has her sewing room, which is just kind of a little addendum to our master bedroom.
Yeah. I
so
like that.
You have to have that.
Yeah. You have a cool master bedroom. So I'll talk about the Woodland Avenue room last. What I'll jump in here before I do that one, just to talk a little bit about my rooms in New England. So I lived in Maine 93 to 96. I lived in New Hampshire 96 to 98. And what's interesting about the memories of those places is that I don't really remember making the room that I lived in for 3 years in Maine really my own. I moved up there. It was like just another room. Mom lived with her boyfriend up there. It was just 2 bedrooms and I actually saw a picture of it recently. I was like, oh man, it's like fucking blast from the past. It was just real small beach house kind of situation. I don't know, maybe 500 square feet, something like that, 600 square feet.
Wow, that is
small. Yeah, it was small.
Yeah,
it was small. And yeah, maybe 600 square feet, something like that. I'd be curious to know what mom would think about that. And so I ended up moving into this room, and I there's certain memories I have of it. Like I ended up getting this like kind of cheapish wood shelf that mom still has actually in like her attic now, that I used to put like some toys on. She bought me, which is really funny, and I still bring it up and still make fun of her to this day. She bought a bunk bed. Now this is totally true. She'll deny that this is true, but it is true, and I think it is hysterical. We bought this bunk bed. It was this black metal bunk bed. She still had it, I think, at the beach house until
she does. Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now that we saw that bed. So we bought that bed in like 93. We saw that bed maybe a few months later on a Recall commercial during a hockey game, where it was like, ring, ring, like urgent recall, like this.
Whoa.
Yeah. And we saw, I slept on that bed. People have slept on that bed a million different ways.
Oh, my kids have slept on it.
Yeah.
Our nieces and nephews.
Right. And there was a reason why I would never sleep on the bottom. I'm like, I'll never sleep on the bottom of this bed. And mom's like, it's not that bed. It was a different bed, but she used to be in on it. But when I was a kid, so that's how I know that she knew that. Anyway, so I remember that bed. And it's so funny. And what I remember about that too is it was like this cheap shit metal bunk bed. It was best we could do, but the ladder to the top was just metal bars, and it was like totally just destroy your feet. And I remember us putting like the pipe foam or around it, so that exactly. I could actually pipe insulation. And I would put like hockey tape around it so I could like step up. But it's so funny because with that room, I just remember in Maine, I just don't really remember making it my own. We had a desk in the corner, and I had a small Daewoo TV, like 13-inch TV.
Nice.
Hooked up with my SNES, and I would just sit there and play my SNES in the corner, sitting in a chair. Sometimes I would hook it up to the TV outside, the living room, which was probably 3 times bigger, not too big. And that's kind of the memory of that house. It had this, I don't know if you remember it very well, but it had just white walls, white wooden walls, and it had this like orange and red mix carpet that was probably from the 70s.
Wow. No, I don't remember that.
This is kind of a linoleum type kitchen, bathroom in the far end, all this. And so, yeah, that bedroom I never really made into my own. And I will say this, to Mom's credit, and props to Mom, and this is sad thinking back about it, is that when Allie moved to Maine for a year, so that was in 95, I think, the school year 95, 96.
Okay.
Mom slept on the couch that entire year, so Allie can have
The
her own
entire
bedroom.
time?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So
that's a selfless mom.
Yeah.
That really is.
Because so that was the thing that happened as well. So yeah, I there's that house, and then New Hampshire I lived in for 2 years when I went to private school there. I lived in another house on Dover Point Road, and this room was bigger. It was cool. It was kind of exciting. I remember being excited to be in that room. Same bed and all of that. A lot more space to work with. I remember hanging out. I was really into hockey. Obviously, I was hanging up all my posters and all these kinds of things. But again, I don't feel like at this particular time I was in the rooms too much. I was playing hockey. I was at school. I was doing other things. So it wasn't until high school that I really was able to make put my personality into my room. And, I think I was working at a specific disadvantage because I was just moving around so much. My spirit, as it were, was never really stationary in one place. So I never really got to like build on things and establish a structure. And that's kind of the sad reality of my life. In fact, I have almost every night a dream for a long time, like a dream of where I'm urgently trying to get somewhere or do something, or something is like incomplete, and I can never get there, and I can never do what I need to do, and all of that. And I think it all goes back to, and I wake up with like anxiety like every day from these dreams.
Wow.
Like I'll be in an airport and cannot get to the plane. I'll be in like a train station and cannot get to the train. I'll be in school and like cannot get to my class in time. Like every night, pretty much, I have one of these dreams.
Holy shit.
It's like an unresolved thing in my mind. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was just always moving about. I never got a chance to solidify myself. I could never be where I wanted to be, which was just stationary and secure. So I think that has something to do with especially the rooms in New England not really having their personality, because when you think about it, I was in Maine, but I would go home for 3 months or 3.5 months during the summer to Long Island. I would be gone Christmas, Easter, all the holidays, many weekends. I was never really there. And then when I was there, I was playing hockey and doing all these different kinds of things. So it's funny, actually, that I guess there's an amendment, though, because I had a bedroom for 1 year in New Hampshire when I was in 8th grade, when I lived with Dad at this apartment complex in 97, 98. And I don't know if you remember that place. That was a small apartment too.
I do.
But that bedroom had kind of a flavor. I had posters. I had like my bookshelf. I actually had your old furniture from Marie Court. So like your desk with the shelves on it, and
yes,
the shelf the twin bed and all that.
I was wondering where that stuff. You're right, that was there.
Yeah, so I had all of that, and so that room had a little bit of a personality. I remember I had like a little Nerf basketball hoop. I would watch. I only got like channel 13 over the air in there, so I would just like watch TV, and I would play all my PlayStation games on that little ass 13-inch TV. It's so funny when I think about it. I'm playing my games on like a 70-inch OLED, like a $3,000 TV now, and I didn't give a shit. I didn't know it. I think about this, like when RGB plugs came out, and and
absolutely,
I kept through the Dreamcast. So PS1, PS2, and Dreamcast would buy the cable connector to plug into the back of the control. You would plug in the cable into the box. The cable would run through the box, and then you would plug it into your console and plug it into the back of the TV. For people that don't know what I'm talking about, where you put your cable into is where you used to have to connect everything that would play on the screen.
Yep.
So you would connect your NES or SNES, and those used to come with those consoles. But by the time we moved on to, I think PlayStation 1 was the first one, and N64, it was S video and the yellow, red, and white plugs.
Yeah.
And so you had to go buy those special. And so I remember that too. But that's kind of where I'll leave it with those New England bedrooms. I want to throw it back to you because I'm really eager to hear about the second Neighbor Avenue room, because I have a theory about this to kick it back over to you, is that I know that my room in Neighbor Avenue was Care Bears themed. I remember that.
Yes.
And so is this when you did the Return of the Jedi stuff, when you moved rooms? So that's where that all came from, that whole redesign, that whole mantra. I see now.
Absolutely.
So yeah, talk to me about this room. And I'm especially curious with, I just picture so many toys, G.I. Joe and Transformers and Star Wars and Mask and all these. It must have been wild times.
Yeah, that was the room for all the toys, for sure, which is interesting because I was a little older already. So Peter Pan syndrome on full display at that point. Yeah, this is a fun one for me to think back on, because I had even forgotten, I hadn't thought about that in a long time because all the memories sort of blend. But yeah, I had 2 different bedrooms in that house. And of course, the big event behind that was Colin's birth. So let me set the scene for you guys a little bit. Colin was born in October of 84. So this had already had to have been in place, say, by the summer prior that we all moved around. So our sister Allie, our younger sister Allie, had the bedroom where that would become Colin's nursery. One of the interesting things about this is I have no recollection of what Allie's bedroom looked like at all. And that was 10 years. You know, I had known that room of hers from being 4 to 10 years old. I have no recollection of it whatsoever, except for the space, the general space I do remember. But that's interesting. I don't remember Allie's room. She has to remind me sometime what it looked like in there, the decor and the colors and all that. I'm not sure how it was decorated. I really have no recollection of it. And so Kyle was coming. So hence the big bedroom shift. And so what happened was I was in the biggest of the 3 bedrooms other than the master. So the plan was for me to move over to the bedroom closer to the nursery. And then Dana and Allie would come into the big room that I was just in. And that's when they started sharing. And it was a big bedroom that I was in. It was a pretty luxurious size for a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old. But then the girls moved into that room. And then the smallest bedroom at the front of the house, the nursery, was created for Colin. And that had the Care Bear wallpaper. And then my dad did the Care Bear wrapping on the light switches and the outlets and the garbage can and the whole thing. And Care Bear dolls. It was all Care Bear themed. Very cute. I'll never forget it. And then they did the Care Bear on the high chair for you downstairs. They cut out, Dad very masterfully cut the Care Bears out, very carefully plastered them on the high chair. Super cool. Such vivid memories of you coming. It was so exciting.
There was a time when people were excited I was around.
It was so exciting because think about it. They had already been, I was around for almost 11 years. I would be 11 years a couple of months after you were born. I'd be turn 11. Dana was only a couple of years after me. Allie, I'm 5 years older than. She was born in 78, 79. I always forget. 79. So we had already been around. Things were kind of just rolling along for years. There was no real excitement. This was a major upheaval in a good way. It was exciting. And it really was fortunate, actually, if I think back, because I got the free upgrade to another room, like a big kid room at that age, at that pivotal age. I know very well because Graydon, my son, my youngest, is at that exact age right now. And I see what he's going through with just wanting a change of scenery. You get a little older, your interests are changing, your taste is evolving. So I had that built into my life. So it was actually kind of cool that happened that way. And I moved into this room. And yeah, my parents made it all Return of the Jedi 83, just a year prior. I was obviously that was my bread and butter. The sun rose and set with Star Wars. Nothing changed there. So I had the Return of the Jedi bed sheets and bedding, the comforter, the curtains, the wallpaper. And then my dad did the same thing with the wallpaper. He wrapped my trash can, he wrapped the outlets, the light switches, all of that stuff. Super fun. And it was funny because I really was thinking about that room, the wall color and stuff. I don't have the best recollection of that. And I was like, what was hanging on my walls, posters and stuff? I had so much more vivid memories of the room that I was moving out of. And then I remembered I wasn't allowed to hang anything on those walls. That was part of the stipulation with the wallpaper. So you can't destroy the wallpaper. All I was allowed to hang posters on was I had the closet with the sliding doors, the one closet. It wasn't a walk-in, just a conventional closet. And it had the plastic doors. So that was the one caveat. I could hang posters on that. And I would constantly change them out because I only had those 2 surfaces. And I remember finally landing on a Rambo poster, First Blood Part 2, that classic Sly with the RPG launcher covered in mud with the headband. I had that poster on that closet for the longest time. I love that poster so much. But that was pretty much the only thing I was allowed to hang. And the main thing about this room, Kyle, was the toys. Because now my toy playing and toy collecting was in full bloom, because it wasn't just Star Wars through the 3 films, now on Return of the Jedi, but now it was G.I. Joe. That was in full effect. Transformers, and then Mask would eventually come while I was still in that room. And I had a giant shelf walking into that room on the right-hand side that I kept all my toys on. And the funny memory, and a little bit Playmobil into the mix. There was definitely, Playmobil was like a fifth, less important, but still present thing that I was getting into. And that shelf accommodated all my toys, except for like the super large vehicles, like the G.I. Joe, the killer whale, like that giant hovercraft that couldn't really fit. So I had it on the floor right in front of the shelf. But the funny memory was, yeah, that was really where I waged all those campaigns, playing on the floor with this stuff for hours, whether it was just me, whether it was me and Tommy on the weekends. Sometimes we were in my room, sometimes we were at his house. But not only that, but the funny memory I had was, and again, talk about OCD, right? This is where it really started for me in this room. It would take me as long to clean up the toys as it took me to play with them, because I was so methodical about putting everything in its right place. And I remember being relieved about this as a kid, because my Star Wars figures had cases. I had 2 cases. So I was able to kind of just put them in there and not think about it. But the G.I. Joes, I never had cases for. So I would have to put the G.I. Joes standing up along the top shelf of that specific piece of furniture. And it took me forever, dude. And I would have to do it. Like, everything would have to be beautifully appointed for the next time I was going to play. And it was for no reason. And don't even ask me how they didn't fall from the vibration of the floor when I walked by and stuff like that. You know, it was just like putting everything up there, and everything. Star Wars had its own level. G.I. Joe had its own level. Transformers had their own level. And sometimes, you know, I would try to mix it up. Sometimes I would have the Transformers in their alt modes. Sometimes I would have them in their vehicle modes, you know, whatever was easier. But I remember being aggravated as a kid a little bit. Like, I kind of half enjoyed it, and half was like, it was almost like I felt compelled to do this. And it was really where my OCD started. And I don't tell a lot of people about this, but why not? In the spirit of candor, right? I don't even know if you know about this. This specific bedroom reminds me of this, because I was getting a little older, and it's that age, at least for my generation, where you first get your clock radio. For some reason, you're in junior high now. School's a little earlier. Your parents aren't getting you up. It's your job to get up, set the clock radio. That was a thing. Set it to your radio
I remember
station,
that actually getting
right.
mine
That's
too.
a big, that's a milestone for a kid. But for some reason, I don't know what was going. I was a relatively anxious kid. I don't think I was too disturbed, but I definitely had anxiety, right? I was sensitive, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know what was going on specifically at this time in my life. Everything was pretty harmonious if I think about it in retrospect, but it's really where my OCD started, where I would be messing with the light switches and counting. And I would do this thing with the clock radio, and the clock radio, for some reason, is where, to my best recollection, everything got set off. I would have to check it a million times, set it before I go to bed. I'm laying there. I would have to check it a bunch of times, a specific amount of times, and I would have to light it up a couple of times. And it was all because that whole thing of being afraid something bad's going to happen if you don't go through this ritual, right?
I can relate.
Dude,
yeah.
I spent years thinking that was unique to me, right? I remember later on, maybe I was in my teens or something, having my mind blown when I was like, wait, that's a thing that other people do? Like, I am a crazy person, but there's other people that are also just as crazy as me. And I remember, it just reminds me, the whole thing blends really with my OCD, with my toys, because I do remember the feeling of like, being like this is making me a little miserable. Like, I'd rather just kind of throw caution to the winds and just put the toys away and go do something fun. But again, that OCD, and I guess there's a lot of people out there that could speak to this, being compelled to do it that way. And then I remember, still while I was in this room, before we moved to Brookhaven, when I was 13 at the time. So somewhere in that time of being 10, 11, 12 years old, I just gave up being like that, because it was really making me crazy. I remember having that one moment where I was like, look, it's worth the risk. I have to stop doing this. Like, if something bad happens, I remember thinking, like, if something bad happens, it's worth the risk. I can't do the light switch 50 times. I can't. So it's like, and that reminded me of the clock. I would drive myself crazy with that clock radio at night. I would dread going to bed because I would have to do this preconceived ritual a certain amount of times. And it reminds me too that I was such an insulated kid because I really wasn't demonstrative. I didn't tell mom and dad about my issues. You know what I mean? Like that, I harbored that for the better part of 2 or 3 years, maybe even. Just thinking, all right, like this is some weird thing. Like it's a tick. I'm like a little bit crazy. I don't know. The best way you could wrap your mind around it as an 11-year-old, right? Because I'm not thinking I can't articulate it. It's just like this thing that seems to be my nature and I have to do this. And it's just a big part of my experience of living in that bedroom. And then that funny realization of like, no, it's not just you. There's people with this personality or this disorder, whatever you want to call it. And being a little bit proud of myself that now listen, I'm OCD. Colin used to make fun of me the way I got in my car and checked my dashboard. For instance, he would always tease me about that. Helene still teases me about it.
And I still do a thing where Dagan would sometimes the seats would be so armor-all that I would get in and you like just slip out of the seat.
On the pleather seats in my old Toyota. But I think, I still have that nature, right? Like I would never, we talk about this on the show, I would never take a firecracker to my toys or just throw my G.I. Joes in the mud or whatever it is.
Oh my God, never,
but,
no.
Having to break myself of that OCD that was kind of debilitating in a way. It was just really kind of like this hurdle that I had to overcome. And that bedroom is such a big part of that memory of just getting over that part of myself, which is so funny. It wasn't just the toys and playing on the floor and enjoying that. I spent probably the most time in that room of any bedroom. Because when you're little, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, you're outside, you want to play and everything like that. This is when the nerd in me started to really take hold. And with the video games, with the toys, I mean, everything short of D&D, which I have no idea how I didn't get into at this point. And I never really got into, which is another story for another time. But that's the thing. This is where really we spent hours. Tommy and I spent hours in our bedrooms really doing, these huge, episodic, epic adventures with especially G.I. Joe and Star Wars. That was huge. Transformers less so. That was more for independent play. And, faking that I had Transformers.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's so I love hearing about the toys and because we kind of share that. And also the OCD stuff. I've never been as bad as you, but I wonder if it is some sort of genetic thing because obviously I have that as well. And there are certain things that have really awoken it in me. I think everyone knows trophies specifically with PlayStation games has that totally itches something in my mind. I'm a very complete player. I like to level up my characters. I like to do everything in a game. And they gave me this meta game that just tracks it all for you. And I've been obsessed with it since 2008. It's like insane. Like I can't break it. It was another OCD thing for me that's similar to you. I had to kind of say like, I can't do this anymore was when Foursquare was big. Do you remember that app? Foursquare?
I do. Yeah.
Where you check into places and you become the mayor of these different places. And I would like get so obsessed with checking in and being present in these places.
I didn't know.
I was like, oh man, I gotta stop doing this. And there are other things. There are a lot of subtle things. I've said before, Micah makes fun of me about like how I straighten things out and she'll like just like stare at me as I'm like, I'm not even trying to be persnickety. I'm just doing those kinds of things. But really in the even numbers, I keep all my numbers even, like volume and all that kind of stuff. Unacceptable to have
I do that too.
Volume, unacceptable to have odd number temperature in the house. Unacceptable.
You still do that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, to this day.
I do too.
10,
Same
12,
thing.
14, 16, like those are the volumes of TV. 64, 66, 68, 70, like those are the temperatures. Like there's no
That's
option.
never a thing. Listen, we never discussed that. We both have it.
Right. So exactly. That's what I'm saying. I wonder if it's
very
something
strange.
Yeah, something in us. And it doesn't seem like it manifests with the girls or like anyone else.
No, less so at least. Much less so, I would say.
But I can totally. And when I was a hockey player, I did weird shit too. I've said it before. I used to write things on the bottom of my skates. I would jump over the blue lines when I would skate around before a game. I had a bunch of like weird rituals, and I don't know what that was all about. I've kind of gotten out of some of that stuff where I'm not as crazy. I said before, and God, it's really sad when you think about it psychologically because it's so obvious what I'm actually like is saying as a kid. But I've said before that I used to make Dad promise me that he would see me in the morning, right? Like before I go to bed, like I love you, Dad. I love you too. See you in the morning. Okay, promise. Yes. That was the thing. I had to make him promise that. And I'm thinking back on it, it's like, man, that's sad. That's some sad shit.
That is really a touching.
And I've been talking to Micah about it. Like, I'm not ready to do it yet because first of all, it would take a lot of time, but I want to do it one day, and money too. But I want to do like deep psychoanalysis. Like one day, just be like, I'm going to do this 3 days a week for a year, and like, and just make it hurt. Just like, let's fucking go.
If we're gonna do this, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Like, I want to dredge up as much as possible. Let's touch memories that have no tether to life anymore, and dig those out of the grave, and so on and so forth.
Do you think in doing that they could pull things out that you literally do not remember right now?
Yes, I do.
That's a scary but very interesting notion for me.
There are people, and again, I always bring up these same people like Sam Harris, all these like academics I listen to. They talk. I think it's Lex Friedman that talks about this very specific thing where like they can just pull memories out of you. Like
that's amazing.
It's with all these different techniques and hypnosis and meds and all these different things. Like they can get shit out of you. Truth serum, that kind of stuff. Well, not that that's the specific thing, but there's something to that.
Yes.
And so I often think about that, and it is sad. And I would really like to, when I have the bandwidth in my life, which I do not have right now, it should just be like, let's just fucking do it. Like, let's go. It's the same reason I hate this. Well, I don't care. I mean, whatever. I'm 37 years old. It's like, I really want to do acid and stuff like that at some point, because there's people that really swear you like get in touch with parts of your body and your mind and stuff that you just don't even know exist and aren't there. And I want to, Steve Jobs is a big advocate of that too. I really want to, there's no coincidence to me. I don't think that some of the smartest people that I know of are all on the psychedelics, and there's a part of me that wants to unlock that part of my brain too. Maybe
isn't that interesting, dude? Like these chemicals could allow you to access ideas, parts of your mind, whatever that you can't otherwise access. It's fascinating. It is fascinating. It's just, for me, you have a more adventurous personality than me. I would let the fear hold me back. Where you're a little more like
Roger Serling in the situation where I'm like writing
much more like Roger.
Where I'm like writing my name on a piece of paper and putting it in my pocket.
Oh my God, classic.
But so maybe one day and I guess I am a little adventurous, but I'm curious. And what's so weird about that is that it's all in there. It's all inside of you, and you just can't get to it. It's just, your mind is purging things all the time and finding new ways to make quicker connections. And, Sam Harris talks a lot about that, about just getting rid of data constantly but there's just remnants.
Purging.
Like, your mind knows that it can't remember things. Your mind also protects you from remembering certain things.
Yes.
Your mind turns things off for a reason. Like,
I definitely have that.
There are a couple of bad things that have happened to me, I would say, in my life, where it's like, where I have gone years without thinking about it, and then like, it's like, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Defense. And like brings you, and like, you just remember it one day, and it's like, oh my God.
Is that like funny? And what fired that to the surface, right? It's like, it's so interesting to me, like all that stuff. Now, if you do that, I don't want to stay on this for too long, but we'll go off on a tangent. But if you do that, would the idea be healing and feeling better, or just sheer curiosity of what you're suppressing or not remembering, or a combination?
It would be good to get into a room with someone and be completely honest about everything that you think, everything you know, everything you feel. Like, I don't think anyone exists in anyone's life per se where you can just be like, I'm going to say everything to you now, like, no holds barred.
That's a great point.
And there's no one in my life I would do that to. No one.
Yeah.
There's just no. Now, maybe if you take people and put a little Venn diagram over them, that like it makes a whole circle when you get around to saying everything to everyone. Like, you'll say a little bit of this to this person, and you'll say a little bit of this, and there's some sort of holistic picture. But I don't even think so. And I love that idea. I love that idea of, because it's scary as fuck. Be like, okay, like, let's do it, and just go back to the very beginning. And
you got a movie here, I think. First of all,
yeah, maybe,
or a whole series.
I can barely write my fucking game. So let's take it easy. All right.
One thing at a time.
The last bedroom I'll talk about is the bedroom that I lived in probably least, or near least, but that was most formative to me. And that's the bedroom you're bringing up on Woodland Avenue. I moved in to that room in 98, in the summer of 98, and left full time at the end of 2002 when I went to college, or the end of summer of 2002 when I went to Boston. And obviously I would come touch and go for years after that. But those were the 4 years I lived there full time. And this room, I think, went through phases. First of all, this is an interesting room. So you walk into our house on Woodland Avenue, right through the front door, nothing to the left is just a wall. The stairs are right in front of you. You go up the stairs, there's a bathroom right in front of you, and then to the left is one room, and to the right is another room, and that's it. Then everything else is downstairs. And my room was on the right. And but I basically had domain over the entire upstairs. Allie's room was on the left, but she was never home, and then she never lived there, and she was older and all that. So I had my own bathroom and like my own situation upstairs. It was actually quite nice. And this room went through multiple phases. I think it went through like a childhood phase, and then I think it went through a more adult phase. And what's interesting is that, so I loved Star Wars too, like Dagan did, and I was obsessed with Star Wars. I became really obsessed with it when the toys came back out in 95, but I was into Star Wars probably since the late 80s or early 90s, but I would say it really took over when the Power of the Force 2 figures came out, right on through when I was in college, and the prequels ruined everything. And I coveted this shelf in New Hampshire at this I don't know what it was. It was like this depot that Dad used to go to buy random things, and there was this amazing shelf that used to like hold CDs, I think, at like a music store. And I just wanted it. I was like, this would be perfect for my Star Wars figures. It was like these little slots. And Dad ended up buying it for me after like a year of me begging for it. It was just sitting in this place. And that was like installed basically in my room upstairs. And I put all my my Star Wars figures in each slot. And it was ridiculous.
I loved it.
And I had named plates kind of printed out for them. And then Dad took fishing wire and hung all my ships in the room. So Dad put like this huge piece of this like piece of wood across the center of the ceiling, and then put hooks on it, and he hung like my Falcon, my X-Wing, my TIE Fighter, A-Wing.
So cool.
I'm trying to think of what else. So I'm trying to think. It was Slave One.
Oh yeah.
B-Wing maybe. And yeah, so like and there were a few things I couldn't hang. And then on my dresser, I had like an AT-AT, an ATST, the speeder, the speeder bike, and like the land speeder and all this kind of stuff. I just had G.I. Joe shit everywhere. Or Star Wars. I keep saying G.I. Joe. Star Wars stuff everywhere. And so that was kind of like part of the first phase of that. But then as I got a little older, I got out of Star Wars, really beginning with the episode 1. But by episode 2, which came out when I was in 12th grade, I was like, I can't stay on this anymore. So a lot of that stuff came down. And I guess I should describe the room a little bit better too. You walk into the room and it's one of those slanted ceiling rooms that then meets at the top as a horizontal line, and then it goes down on the other end, along with the roof. And I had like a skylight in my room, which was awesome.
That was so nice.
And it was this beautiful old tree out in the backyard, and you should just have this like vision of it. And I just had Star Wars stuff hung everywhere, posters galore. I had some baseball posters and all the rest. I even had a Darth Maul cardboard cutout, you might remember, that I got for.
I do.
That was like in the corner of my room for a while.
I love that.
And then I had this like blue seat that was in our living room. I think it was like one of those blue. It was like a soft fabric, and it had like the gold.
Yes.
Studs.
Oh my God, I forgot about that chair.
And I used to sit in that and play games. That was like someone's chair at some point. I had a basic bed. One piece that was really key was that I had a drum kit in my room. My drum kit was just in the corner of my room the entire time I was there, which was awesome. And Dad built, you might recall, Dad just kind of built this shelf for me just out of some scraps that ended up being my TV stand. And I had like this old TV on it. And I had these Lego boxes stacked up next to the TV so I can turn the TV and it could face my computer monitor, so I can be on my computer and be playing games at the same time. So it was just this really ghetto. I was like, there's pictures of it too. There's like textbooks under it. It's so funny. and then over time, I think it became a little more simplistic. And this is where I really wanted to get into the philosophy of bedrooms, because I was really heavily influenced by like my friends and what they were doing in their rooms. And I always tried to replicate it, but I can never do it like properly. I remember, for instance, my friend Brian across the street, Brian Myers, had pictures of people, like friends like us, on moments like on his wall. And I was like, I want to do that. I don't take pictures and put it on my wall, my friends. But I was like, it was a thing I just did for a little while, and then I stopped doing it. Or I remember I was like talking to this girl in high school, and in her room, she had like candles and like wax on things. So like I remember like pouring wax all over like my clock radio and like all my,
that's awesome,
and all this kind of stuff. But then it never really stuck. I remember my friend Louise, who I used to BMX with, had like, she's like a really messy room. And I tried to replicate that, being like, I'm going to just throw things on the ground. I'm not going to clean. And it got so OCD for me. I would bring my BMX in there and like hang it on the wall and try to like make it like more lived in. And I couldn't do that. Every time I kind of encountered this other philosophy of the way people did their rooms, I was like, I like this philosophy, but for some reason it just never worked for me. And a key component to that, well, maybe there were two of them, was, first of all, like you said, I had a computer in my room. And this began in 1999, I think. And that was a big deal in 1999. And it was awesome. I mean, that was a game changer. I don't think that I would be where I am today without that opportunity to just sit on the computer for fucking hours and do nothing. Now, you were talking about your own phone line. I used to occupy the phone line. And then without me asking, this is one of those random dad moves. He was like, I came home one day and he's like, "We've got you a phone line in your room, like your own phone line."
That's amazing. And shocking.
Right. And I was like, what? And it was because usually it was a problem. Usually there was a problem of some sort. I talked about how dad's 486 crashed in like 98 or 99. And he just blamed me for it. I'm like, I didn't do anything to the computer, dude. What the fuck are you talking about? You don't know anything about these computers. You're blaming me for. So, but a funny story is that in 2001, now this is fucking karma. Okay. In 2001, we were in a rainstorm, and this used to happen to people's modems. I don't know if people remember this, but if there was a lightning strike, you could fry your modem by being connected to the internet with a phone line.
Crazy
to think of. That happened to my modem and my Sony Vaio. And this happened to me when I was in 11th grade. And it happened to me when I was going to 112 Video, which was a famous video store on Long Island, to rent a bunch of PlayStation games to copy them. And then I came home and my modem was fried. So it was like a total karma situation for me.
Dude, that is karma, yeah.
Yeah, and
I have to agree.
Because, oh my God, we were going crazy with that. Because you have to remember, 99, 98, 99, 2000, this was CDRW fucking central. I remember my friend Kevin, when his dad was the first one that got a CDRW, I think 2X or something, so it took forever to copy a CD. I was like, this is revolutionary. And a lot of people were like, oh, we're copying music. I'm like, music, who cares? We can copy PlayStation and Dreamcast games on this thing. You know, especially Dreamcast games, because I don't know if you remember, you could just take Dreamcast games, copy them, and then just put the copy disc in the Dreamcast, and it worked.
So
you didn't have to do anything to it. That's why the Dreamcast failed. You didn't have to do anything
out of those
because games. they didn't think that anyone was gonna be able to copy CDs like that. You know,
it's amazing.
So I love little shit like that. But that room it's a lot of video games, a lot of FAQ writing, a lot of. I remember when I finally bought my Sony Trinitron in 2000, in the summer of 2000. That's when I got cable in my room. So it was so exciting to have that. And I don't know if you remember, I had this huge poster of Cloud on my Final Fantasy 7 on my door. I have some cool shit from back in the day that was like that I got from like game stores. I have a bunch of Final Fantasy 7 stuff that I have a Final Fantasy 7 poster where it says like, "Do not underestimate the power of PlayStation," which is a picture of Cloud on it, which is like super cool. It's probably just from EB Games or something. And I used to just go in there and take shit from them.
Yeah, they would give you the stuff back then if you asked.
Yeah, they didn't give a shit.
They really would.
It was just not the same frame of mind as it is today. I don't know what that was all about. But we were a little bit ahead of the game with that. So I would start like grabbing to and fro. So I have some of that cool stuff too. I have like Nintendo signs, like World of Nintendo signs, and like I've said before, that are just straight out of NES.
So cool.
Like game holders and all this. That kind of stuff people would never leave behind now, but that you like for some reason just couldn't give shit like that away. I think I got those at an antique store. So
okay.
So yeah, I wanted to just bring. There's a lot there, like the computer, the TV, also the experiences in that room. A lot of funny moments with watching funny movies with you and others. You know, moments with girls. You know, frankly, lost my virginity in that room, right? Like, so
I was going to ask you about
that whole element to it.
Yeah,
and God, imagine having sex and just looking to your side, and there's just a shelf of, you know, it's like the Sarla, it's like the fucking. It's like Dengar and the Gamorrean guard staring back at you. It's probably
I love that. I love the blending of the two things because it's such a bittersweet memory of having. You still have those things that are evocative of being a little kid, but then you have the girls and you playing your drums and maybe smoking little doobies.
Oh yeah, I used to box out
beer.
That room all the time. Yeah, the drinking. I don't know if we ever really drank in that room, but I used to smoke in that room all the time. I had like a little bubbler, and I would just blow it out the skylight. It was perfect. And I I don't know if Dad ever knew, although what I do remember is that Dad was gone. Dad used to date this girl in upstate New York, so he would leave for like days at a time when I was in college.
Wow.
And I used to, Marsha, you might probably remember her.
I do.
And so I remember when I was in college, I came home and I was dating the same girl I dated throughout college, and I knew Dad was going to be home for days, so I was just boxing out the bathroom upstairs with my girlfriend at the time and Mike Pope, my best friend at the time, and then Allie came home and she's like, "You're such a fucking dirtbag."
You had the run of the place.
Yeah, I thought it was hysterical. I remember that memory so clearly. She's like, "He just fucking reeks in here." Or something.
Allie was in school at the time, so she was at FIT.
No, I think she might have just been like out, like in early professional life. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably closer to that's so right.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting times in that. Also, the window out of that room went off to the roof of the garage, which I used to go on to sometimes once in a while.
Did you do that?
Yeah, and it was harder to do as I got older because we had an air conditioner in there, but I used to have just those like shitty fans that don't do anything, just like blowing hot air around. It's like completely useless. And you could just take that out easily and go out there. So yeah, a lot of interesting memories, but just being in that corner on that desk, it was not a computer desk. I had just the drawer pulled out with the keyboard in the drawer.
I remember.
And I was just clickety clacking away on that thing and just watching TV and playing games. And there are pictures of that room. They're probably on Instagram or something. I don't really use Instagram anymore, but there are a lot of memories of that room. And it's funny how truncated it was in 4 years. And I often wonder if I just had the experience of having lived in one space the entire time, how that would have gone. And I think we kind of saw the end result, but I loved the struggle of the philosophy. I'll always remember that, of just being like, I want to be cool, or I want to have pictures of my friends. I want to be messy. And it's just so, and nothing, it was just, I got to be myself. I have to do what I have to do in my own room, which is kind of the way it fell. So that's what I remember most about that. But that's the final bedroom memory I have. Dave, let's kick it over to you I really want to hear about your Marie Courtroom, because this is your chance to kind of refresh, and you were cognizant. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, how much input you had. I remember your gray rugs and your gray walls. I'm wondering if you had anything to do with that. And I'm talk to me a little bit about the final room of your childhood.
Yeah, this is a special one, because this was my first, quote unquote, big kid / teenage bedroom. And it would be my last ever bedroom under our parents' roof. So this was the last of a trifecta, or maybe 4 bedrooms, you could argue, end of an era. And dude, I love what you said about trying to glean inspiration from your friends' bedrooms. That's so funny to me, because I think back to doing that too. And my friend Tommy, it was kind of difficult because, as I've said a million times, sweetest dude in the world, had everything. So literally had every vehicle and every action figure in duplicate, and every single thing from every single toy line that we dug. So I could never model my environment after him, because it would be impossible. We just didn't have the same means. And then my friend John, this is an interesting one. And as soon as you started talking about this, I started thinking about his bedroom growing up, especially as early teens, junior high and high school, because I don't know if you remember John's bedroom, but he had a very minimalist setup. And his parents were very persnickety, speaking of that, and neat, and very methodical with everything in their place. But they had a very feng shui thing going on where there was no clutter. Everything was very tidy. Everything was just so, and there wasn't too much of anything. And John's bedroom was really, really minimalist. I mean, he had basically his bed split in the center of the room, like you would say. And he had an old PC in there. Not an old PC. It was relatively new for the time. I don't know if it was a Commodore or whatever, an Amiga, whatever it was. So we would play the PC games upstairs. And then eventually he got a really nice stereo when he got slightly older, maybe 13 or 14. And his dad built the speakers into this wainscoting, this wood paneling in the wall. And then he had his dresser. And he might have had like 2 shelves, maybe each shelf was 16 inches long, mounted on the wall. And then he would have a couple of choice Transformers. Like I remember he had one shelf and he had like Inferno, Hoist, and Wheeljack on it or something. And I would get so frustrated because like, dude, you have so many Transformers. Why are they in the closet? You know what I mean? But he had a very minimalist sensibility. And I remember thinking it was his parents' influence, but it wasn't. He was just he was kind of an old man about it. Like he was really ahead of his years just with his sensibilities, very sophisticated for a young kid, but he really liked it like that. You know, we collected vinyl when we got a little older. He had so many albums. He would have one album that he was really excited about, an EPMD album or De La or whatever it was, whatever we were listening to at that time. He was really into house music. So he would have that one thing, that one album out in front of his stereo, and the rest of the albums would be hidden behind those wood panels, that wainscoting. It was so interesting. And I wanted to display the stuff I had. I wanted to enjoy it. I wanted to look at it. And he was different. You know, he had a different, again, like you were saying, philosophy with how he wanted his surroundings. He inspires me now with that. I wish I had more of that. I had another friend, Chris, who had a very similar thing where everything had to be very clean and not a lot of things in sight. He would rather have everything in storage and just see one or two choice things, which I get. But yeah, this room for me, this last bedroom in Marie Court in Brookhaven, I was 13 years old when we moved in. This was 1987. And I was there until I was 20, until I left for college. I left for college a couple of years late. I took a year and a half off of school between high school and college. So the one thing that I remember, the first thing I remember about being in Brookhaven was, and I may have mentioned this on a previous episode, but we moved to a very rural place. Brookhaven is very rural, on the water. It's much less built up than where we were in Medford. Now it's only 5, 6, 7 miles away from where we were. It's not far, but it is amazing to think back, even in retrospect, how Medford was much more suburban and built up when we moved in the late 80s compared to where we were. And I remember it was a much larger house. I remember being really kind of stymied at night of how quiet it was. You just didn't have the din of the cars. We lived right near a major thoroughway. Was that Woodside Avenue?
Yes.
That ran through the developments. So you'd have the constant churning, the cars, the engine noises and stuff all through the night. And we just didn't have that in Brookhaven. It was literally so quiet there. You just had the nature sounds, the frogs, whatever you heard, the birds.
The distant train once in a while.
Yeah. Distant train.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not too far off that train, but that was the Montauk line, and it didn't run that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, exactly. A less used Long Island Railroad train line. So I remember that being a big part of the equation for me, especially early on, the first 6 months to a year of being there. And when I first moved into the room too, it was a beautiful bedroom, but I remember, for a long time, it was just wood floors in there. And just the whole atmosphere of how the sound the effect of the sound and the acoustics in that room.
Oh, I don't remember that. So it was, when you moved in, it was all hardwood upstairs?
It was hardwood.
I don't remember
for a while, actually. Yeah. For a little while. And that whole thing sort of played into how you just heard all the noises, the size of the house, the environment, that rural, and really in the woods. They built our cul-de-sac when they built our house. So, and there was only 6 houses in that cul-de-sac. So, and there were other houses around, but they were very spread out. And then one side of the road was a nature preserve. So it was just woods. And then that's back to the bay and the water. And then eventually you had the ocean on the other side of that. So it was really different than what we were used to in Medford, which is a more typical, conventional, suburban environment. And by the time I moved in there, skateboarding was almost happening. It was close. Like we moved in there, let's say in the fall of 87. By spring of 88, I was fully invested in skateboarding. So that room, to me, I remember one of my big memories. Now, there was 2 layouts of that room. There was the layout when I moved in that probably kind of took effect through most of high school, or maybe 13 through 17. And then the second state of the room was 17 through 20 when I moved. But that first iteration of the room was interesting because it was the first time I ever had new furniture in my life. You had talked about that desk. I had a brand new dresser and a brand new desk when we moved in there. It was the first time I ever had furniture. Now, prior to that, it was sort of mismatched furniture, a dresser, a desk that I had from the time I was 4 until the time I was 13, that I did my homework in elementary school and most of junior high. So having the new furniture was kind of cool. And just having that whole new setup, the wood floors. It was the first time I had a drafting table. I got a nice big drafting table. I was already getting really into art. That was in the room. But one of the most dynamic visual memories I have of that room is just plastering the walls with pulled out magazine pages from Thrasher magazine, from Transworld Skateboarding magazine. So the various skateboarding ads and photos that literally were eventually just covered most of my walls, 3 out of 4 walls, like wallpaper. I mean, all my favorite things. And I wish I had pictures of that room. I have no photos of anything in that era. PJ and I always lament that we don't have any photos of skateboarding at all in high school or video. We just, nothing is documented. You know, we could be lying about the entire thing.
Yeah, it's totally different back then. I think of that
it
too.
Really was
totally huge gaps in my life that are unrecorded.
Isn't it? And isn't it funny how it just kind of flies in the face and how drastically different it is with something like Instagram, where the whole purpose of doing it is to document it almost, right?
That's kind of the reason why I was doing it after a while, and I've just stopped doing it now. But yeah, it was just like, it's like a little history of where I've been. And I wish, I agree, man. There's something really romantic about being from the last generation that ever knew that, though. That it's just not possible anymore. It's actually very avant-garde to be like that today, which is cool.
That's true.
Yeah. And again, there's a Black Mirror episode that gets into all of that, which is awesome, about like kind of eschewing technology in an era when it begs you to. And I get a little annoyed, like when I went out to brunch with Mom and Allie and Dana, and Mom's like, let's get a picture, and I'm like, can't we just be, you know? Like, but anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
It's true. It's hard to shrug off technology when it's kind of become inevitable, but I wish we had some sort of balance there. I wish we knew well enough, we had the druthers to know, like, we're going to talk about this in 30 years, and it's going to be all subject to memory and storytelling.
Yeah, these were the good
and we're
days.
Forgetting so much.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and then we also, a lot of the people, this is a sad part of it, and I don't mean to go down this road, but a lot of the people that were there, that were a part of it, that were, you know, that could help remember and tell these stories, are gone, like PJ's parents. So it's like, you don't even have those people anymore that could remind you of certain things, certain events, certain things that transpired, whatever it was, you know, happy memories. So that sucks. And I always lament that, but it was so cool to just have that room and just surround myself with skateboarding and the things I loved. And it was the first room where I also had my anime posters, which I got from all those cons, those conventions. And I had the Akira poster above my drafting table.
Neo Tokyo was about to explode. I remember that poster very well.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Such a big part of what you wake up looking at every day. I had a Bubblegum Crisis poster and a Gal Force poster and a Gunbuster poster, like, above my dresser. So my bed was facing that. So I would wake up looking at those images every day. And, you know, I had my first stereo, which was really just a glorified boombox with detachable speakers, and I might have had dual cassette so I could dub. And that was before, of course, Aunt Joni moved to Hawaii and gave me her stereo. I inherited her beautiful stereo a little later on. And then I think of silly things like my pet scorpion, Wellington. I had in that room. And I remember it helps me remember the wood floor era before any kind of carpeting was put in that room, because Mom would say that she could hear him clinking, because I would dump him out on the floor. You couldn't handle him. It was an emperor scorpion, supposedly deep poison. But
who the hell knows?
I would just dump him out and let him go around the floor, and then sort of whisk him away into a corner so I could, like, get him back, kind of squeeze him back into the thing, and then he couldn't be out of there too long because they needed the heat. And it got cold in the winter times and stuff. Especially but, you know, there was funny memory. There was one funny memory that was kind of a stressful memory that I have associated with this room. And it was the previous bedroom I had in Medford before we moved was my most well-lit bedroom with natural light, because it was the front of the house and it had 2 side-by-side windows. So a lot of that whole wall was basically window. And I remember how much light came in. This bedroom in Brookhaven was relatively dark, although I had a window on the side of the house and a window on the front of the house because I was on the front corner. Didn't get a lot of light. And also the trees were there. We had a line of trees there that divided the road from the cul-de-sac. So that probably was a little prohibitive for natural sunlight to come through. But I do remember the road was right there on the other side of my wall, basically. And, I talked about this before with high school. I was going through a very irresponsible age with everything. Like, I didn't want to do homework. I didn't want to be bothered with school. Like, I wanted to play video games, skate. I worked because dad held my feet to the fire. And I worked. I went to work. I showed up on time. I rarely called out sick. I did a good job. But that was dad sort of exerting his influence on me. But for the most part, I was just trying to do nothing. Like, I kind of realized, I had the foresight in high school to realize, like, this is it, dude. Like, you're going out to the real world. Enjoy it now. And really, the whole thing was hedonism. And I had friends that were very much like that, like PJ, who, God bless him, I love him for this, but he didn't help. I mean, he's the biggest hedonist I've ever met in my life, Yeah. And then my friends Adam, we all had the same attitude. It was just like, we want to enjoy ourselves. So the bus would come in the morning when I was in high school, so starting in 9th grade, and I missed the bus a lot in high school. Now, mom had started to work. She wasn't a stay-at-home mom anymore. Around the time I was 15, I want to say, she was already doing the flight attendant thing. Dad was doing what he always did. He was commuting to Brooklyn, doing the tours. He was, still doing the firefighter thing. He worked a lot. He worked side jobs. So it was really up to me in the morning to get my ass out of bed and get on the bus. And I missed it a lot. And I would have to walk to school, which was, would you say, a good mile? Kyle,
more than that, I would think.
From my house to school. Maybe a mile and a half, maybe even 2.
Yeah.
Or skate.
Beaver Dam is pretty long.
That's a long stretch.
Yeah.
Right? You'd have to get Old Stump and then Beaver Dam was a big stretch. That was a big stretch. Scary at night, by the way.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love that shit. That's Long Island, man.
That and
no
that
lights,
was
no
lights, no sidewalks, no street lights. You had the lights from the houses. There was no businesses. There was the library. That was it.
I loved it. I love that shit.
Very scary at night.
It's horrifying. When I would come back from Eric's or someone's, and I'd be like fucking biking, like, and that's kind of the thing when you're playing the game with yourself, where it's like, oh my god, I gotta go.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I did that so many nights, dude. Yeah. So many nights. But so that was a big part of it for me, was just having that stress of, really not. I was late to school a lot, I would say, in 10th and 11th grade, and I think 11th grade, I was really not doing well. Like, I was concerned that I wasn't going to graduate, and I had complete power over it, but I just refused to do anything about it. Like, I didn't do my homework 90% of the time. I was just like, whatever, I'll just take, like, the teacher's going to be pissed. I'll just take it. Like, it was really bad. And the only thing that saves me, as I think back, was that my friend John got his license when we were seniors, somewhere in between, in the summer between our junior and senior years. And he would pick me up in the morning and drive me to school. And that was probably the only reason, or one of the reasons, that I got to school on time as a senior. That, coupled with the fear of summer school, I was terrified of having to do.
Yeah, I was always scared of that too.
Terrified.
I don't know if mom and dad were just lording that over me, like, summer school. Oh man, what is this?
But the bus would be out the window a lot. I don't think I've ever really talked about this to too many people. The bus would be out. I'd still be in bed. It's like I was even up, like, getting my bowl of cereal, grab my backpack, like, oh wait, just 1 second. Like, I was 40 minutes behind schedule. The bus would come and go, it would stop every morning and just go again. And it reminds me that being in that room reminds me of that period of my life. And the other one was kind of me and dad butting heads over a poster I had, which maybe when this episode goes up for Patreon, I'll post a link to the image, because I was looking earlier today on Google. So it was a skate photo. Shorty's, which started out as a skate hardware company. Now they're a full-on board company. But they had a girl who was their model that was in ads. Her name was Rosa. And there was one pull-out ad. I don't know if it was in Thrasher or Transworld magazine. And it was a pull-out, horizontally format ad of her laying naked in a pile of Shorty's bolts. And it covered her privates, her boobs and her privates, but she was laying there naked in the, in this big horizontal, I don't want to say spread, format, and laying there in the Shorty's
bolts. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, I remember,
he made me take it off my wall. And I remember that was the only argument we ever really had. Now, I remember trying to reason with him. I was probably 16 at the time. And, like, Dad, she's not even naked. Like, this is it. I remember. Now, listen, we didn't have Colin and I have mentioned this before on KnockBack. We never had the birds and the bees talk with my mom and dad. It's just something that they didn't choose to do. I learned it in the schoolyard, baby. I learned it in the playground, in the sump with the Playboy magazines that were stashed in the woods. Okay. Friends, my cousins, whatever. I learned it on the streets. Okay. So it was the first conversation I ever had with Dad of that nature. And I remember how awkward it was. You're just kind of hoping, you're at that age.
Totally.
You're hoping the parents aren't really coming in the room that much. Our parents are very busy as well. Their marriage was also falling apart, unbeknownst to us at that time. So that, things were extra hectic. So, or maybe about that time.
This chick's
so
hot, dude.
That was the first conversation I had with Dad about something of that nature. It reminds me later on, like I would see like Dad like taking a peek at like a chick jogging down the street.
Oh yeah. That was
right.
That's a whole thing,
and I'd be like, oh shit, like my dad's human. Like it was like one of those jarring things where it was like, oh, like my dad is not. He's a dad just like every other dad. He's great. He's a superhero in my eyes, but I'm pretty sure I just saw him steal a peek at that lady jogging down the street, right? In her spandex.
Totally, yeah. It's right? A disturbing realization. I'm looking
it's
at
like,
this,
my parents
girl
are
now.
human.
She's hot in like a forward thinking sort of way. Like she looks almost modern.
I was thinking the same thing. Like I was thinking and that was early 90s, mind you. I could see by the late 90s.
Yeah.
And then a lot of companies, I think World Industries, she kind of became a model for World Industries. She was used really heavily in skateboarding. And I think I saw a contemporary picture of her. She still looks great. And she's got to be my age or a little younger. So that's saying a lot. But yeah, so that was, and what else did I want to say about that room? Oh, and then that was the thing. And I think this is where Dad and I sort of started butting heads because at around 17, later in high school, I transformed that room, which was a very nice room. Nice layout, new furniture, 13, 14, 15, fine. And then I started to want to sow my wild oats and express myself. So total college dormed it out. Took the mattress off the box spring. I don't even know where the box spring went. Put the mattress in the corner of the room. Brought in the TV so I could have the Super Nintendo in there. Again, no cable. So I couldn't watch television, but VCR. I could play the Super Nintendo and the NES in there. And the NES was in our basement for a long time. The SNES, we tried to hook it up in our family room, but our sister Dana really took exception to that, which I understand. It was the only place we really could watch TV. So the Super Nintendo ended up in my room a lot. And I really, how much I love retro video games, right? It's my heart of hearts. But I blame the Super Nintendo, the NES, and later the Super Nintendo later in high school, almost single-handedly for getting in the way of me and my schoolwork. Because there was no way I was going to do homework when I could play Final Fantasy II, or when I could play Pilot Wings, or when I could play I was still very much into NES at that point. So, and I would play, Kyle, junior and senior year in high school, I would play until 2 hours before the bus game. I'd be up till 4 a.m. sometimes. That's when that sort of midnight oil, late night Dagan thing started. And I think it was really a direct result of video games. Now it's for other things as well. And I've actually been good about this over the last few months. I'm dialing it back in my old age. But that is where those habits started. And it started with those nerd culture things, but especially video. I would stay up and that's another thing. I had our hand-me-down sort of original top loader VCR in my room so I could pop in my anime VHS. I was already fully into the OAV anime thing starting in probably 9th or 10th grade. So that was another thing I had in my room that was exciting. At least it was a step up from just video games. I didn't have cable, but now I could at least watch my videos.
It's so funny, man. I still have this mental thing with cable. I have cable still, and I never watch it. I watch football. That's it. And maybe like if there's a news item happening or something, but otherwise I watch YouTube like pretty much only. And
me too.
And I think about I think about that sometimes, how quaint it is to not have cable and how that made me feel like, and I have it still to this day because I'm like, I'm just going to have it, like, just in case. That's kind of like my feeling, like maybe I'll need it. And it's just this option of things to do outside. I get so afraid, I think, of being stymied and bored thinking of those days where I'm like, man,
yeah, sure.
I think about some situations where I'm like, what the fuck were you doing? Like, how could you have not been so bored? But we just weren't. And now I'm so, like, I think we're broken as a people, generally speaking. Like, I can't imagine when you know, when I don't know if your Apple iPhone does this, but when it says like your screen time this week has been down 10% or up, I don't know if you get that. I get that reminder every week, and it tells you that, or it tells me that, and it's like your screen time has been an average of 3 hours and 34 minutes this per day this week, or whatever. Wow. I'm like, holy fuck! Like, what am I even doing? What am I doing?
I can't even imagine. Lily is my daughter's.
Scary stuff. So it's just
balance.
I love that we come from that generation. Like, I think it's so, especially Generation X, which I'm not part of. I'm an early millennial, but it's a very formidable time. People will never know what that was like, and we were the ones that were broken into it. We came from that old world and remember it. We were there.
Yep.
That's why I keep saying, I was there. I was there, and that's. I told you, a few months ago, I have this VR fantasy one day of being like, KB Toys 1987, put on the VR headset.
It's going to happen.
It definitely is.
It's going to happen.
And it's like, man, I can't wait to live in those analog days again through virtual reality. It's going to be so
oh, dude, it's going to be so, yeah, we were there for those analog. I'm so grateful for that.
Me too.
That we were there for those analog things and to see that change. And I don't know, sometimes, yeah, technology is so rampant and again, that inevitability, but it does seem like, well, let me put it this way. It seems like there could be some sort of return to the quote unquote way it was, but I'm not sure how that's going to happen. And that's why I like your idea about virtual reality, because that makes the most sense. Going back in a fantasy way, it's not real, but it feels real. That seems like a logical way to tackle that and sort of itch that nostalgia.
No, I can't wait.
Scratch at that nostalgia.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I think so. And
it's like the Black Mirror episode San Junipero, which is all about that, and it's awesome about how these people go back to the 80s basically. And have you seen that episode? Cool. These two women.
I gotta dig into Black Mirror.
That show is so fucking good.
I haven't seen that.
You'd love that show. Have you seen any of it?
You showed me you
fell asleep. I tried to show you Metalhead or something and you fell asleep during it.
That one, the one with the Mausers, with the metal.
Yeah.
That one terrified me. I saw that one all the way through. There was a couple of other choice ones that you were trying to get me to watch that I fell asleep during. So
not the best side,
that's one I got it after Game of Thrones. Maybe I'll go back.
Yeah. We should put that on the list at some point. That would be fun.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Wonderful show. Especially because each episode will require its own episode. You can't do seasons at a time. There's no way. First, they're really long. Some of them are 2 hours long, and
I didn't know that.
Like Metalhead's short. I think it's like 45 minutes long.
I love that one.
The one with John Hamm, White Christmas, is widely considered the best one.
That's the one you always told me about.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. One's so fucked. Oh, you'll love it. Especially because you love Bradbury and all that kind of stuff, and obviously Serling. You'll love it. I mean, it's a total ode to those things that we love.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Dig, is there anything left unsaid before we get out of here?
I mean, that was fun. It was really fun for me to sit down just for a few hours and think about things, and talking about earlier, like things that we forgot about for a long time. It's just the things that it dredges up. The era you could almost taste and smell the time. Sometimes the rooms felt different as per the different seasons, what was going on, maybe the holidays. So it's bittersweet. It's, those things are kind of in the past now, but I think being tuned into that helps me deal with that with my own kids, which I think is good, which I think is good for them too, because I get to think like, all right, like be sympathetic to it. Like, I understand what you're going through. You want to kind of shed those little kid things and get into this more sophisticated environment. You want to surround yourself with things you like now, not the things you liked when you were 4. So, and it's funny that we're having this conversation now because it really is a direct link to what's going on with both my kids and how their attitudes are really kind of in that They're right there, right in that pocket right now. And also how they handle it differently. Lilia, our daughter, our oldest, she would leave the bedroom. I'm afraid to know what would happen. You talk about a mess. You're friends with messy rooms. That mess would just build until it reached the ceiling. I'm pretty sure if we didn't intervene in some way, like, all right, look, we're going to help you. I'll do the hamster cage. You do the vacuuming. Let's kind of take a few hours and get this stuff. I'm afraid. The apple fell very far from the tidy tree with me. And Graydon falls somewhere in the middle. He's more like Helene. Things will get to a certain point. Things will get frenetic. He'll be busy. When that mess gets to a certain point, reaches a certain crescendo, he'll stop and fix it. But it could get messy in the meantime, you know? So it's interesting to see too, like, how can I custom tailor their rooms now? They're a little older. He's a preteen. She's in her teens. How can I kind of deal with that? And, you know, also like make that play into the new environment, whether it's new furniture and spending money. And I do understand though, like with my kids, Lilia loves to be in her room. Graydon, not so much so. He'll spend some time in there. If he needs to do something private, he gets on a Zoom call with his friends. Little girl things going on with him lately.
Wow.
I won't blow him up. I won't blow him up.
Whoa.
Yeah. We're there. We have arrived.
Wow. What grade is he in?
Yeah. He'll be going into 6th, but he's still in 5th.
That's about right. Okay.
Yeah. He's right there. Yeah. You know? And you could see he's going through that, like, again, not to blow him up on the pod, but he's going through that thing where, you know, those two worlds are colliding. It's like the childhood stuff, like I love Legos, but like all of a sudden I don't care so much about the Legos and I'm really into like this girl in my class, you know? And you could see like he's still holding on to a little bit of the old ways, but the new ways are coming in. Yeah. So that it's that clash.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's actually fun to observe it. Yeah. You know?
Fair enough.
Am I going to have to talk with him though? Like Helene already has. Apparently.
You're no different than our parents if you don't.
He goes to her for this stuff because I think he thinks I'm going to tease him.
You probably will.
And I am.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. That's exciting. Yeah, they're getting older. That makes a lot of sense. Well, that was fun. That was a fun conversation, longer than I thought it was going to be, which was great. I think people are really going to enjoy this. They like the personal episodes quite a bit.
It's fun. It's fun to talk about. Yeah.
But we'll get back to the more KnockBack centric stuff as well. Yeah, because when I think about these episodes, as I said in the past, I'm like, I don't want to go through them too quickly, but they just keep manifesting. Like I sometimes I'm like, how did I not think of this? Bedrooms. We've done 200. This is 217th episode, I think. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Where have you been?
This is a great idea. This is all yours.
Well, thank you. We'll get back to Game of Thrones and the game. We owe some games and all of this. Actually, I'm trying to think. Fuck, I think I actually, you know what I'm looking at now? I think I totally forgot to do a vote this month. So I'll have to do that.
Oh, for
I'm all scatterbrained. We're about to announce our new game and all of this. So
you got a lot going on. You got a lot of coals.
Yeah.
A lot of embers in the fire.
The game will be just on the verge of being announced, I think, when this goes live. So, so we're just a lot of things going on. But we appreciate all of you out there for your love, kindness, and support of the show. Dig, let's end this episode of KnockBack as we always do with a dad joke.
Kyle, I wasn't sure if you heard. Apparently, police have arrested the world tongue twister champion. They say he will be given a tough sentence.
That's good. Yeah, that's
I like that.
I had to think about that one for a second. Yeah, that was
one of our viewers turned me on to an Instagram. This is all you guys needed. Now you're in trouble. Called the Twitter, or it's an Instagram. Dad Says Jokes. So if you guys want to check out that Instagram,
it's a source for you to plagiarize. A steady source for you.
Another source. Yeah. Another source for me to plagiarize. But if I blow it up, did I plagiarize it?
No.
If a tree falls in the woods.
It's like Poor Richard's Almanac. Like that shit is just eventually just joins the nomenclature. A penny
it's there to be referenced.
Earned. It's just that no one knows that Benjamin Franklin said that. All right. Dave, appreciate the dad joke. Appreciate your time as always, and appreciate all of you guys out there. Thank you again for love, kindness, and support of all things KnockBack. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access to this show and all other things. I will get usually we do get the polls up every month. I forgot this month. We'll get that going, and submit those ideas for shows and have other people vote on them. I think I'm trying to think what's coming up. Uncharted 2, Red Dead Redemption, Star Wars Episode 3 we got to get to at some point. Boy.
God help us.
I'm like putting that one off. I'm just like, oh, God.
That one's just going to keep getting chucked down.
No. I mean, it's perfect. But, all right. Well, we'll see you all out there next time for more Knockback. Until then, goodbye. Knockback, a retro and nostalgia podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and the Philadelphia suburbs, USA. The show was conceived by and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Dagan Moriarty. Knockback's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Knockback, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.